Hey everyone, I'm back with another video, and today instead of covering advantages of software engineering, which many of us cover, I'm going to cover a few shortcomings which I have as a software engineer. The reason for this is because people tend to over exaggerate this field and they don't focus on their weaknesses much. But I want to focus on them because that might help you open up about your own weaknesses and understand that not everybody is perfect or high achiever in software engineering field. Everybody has started from somewhere and everybody has at their own path. So here's the list. The first thing is the lack of contribution to open source projects. So when I started with software engineering, I wanted to contribute heavily to open source because I was using Ubuntu and Linux being the largest open source software. I actually wanted to contribute to a lot of open source projects. But the thing that happened was whenever I used to open GitHub, I used to start off my own projects, and as a sole contributor I used to open source projects, but there was no contribution made from my end in any of the larger open source project till now. Like I just finished 9 years of working in this field and still haven't opened a PR into an external GitHub repository and made a pull request. So if you haven't done it, it's totally fine. As long as you are making progress and uploading your own projects, that works too. Secondly is lack of data structure knowledge. So I have to openly admit that I don't have a deep knowledge of data structures. In the 9 years of experience that I haven't needed data structures in actual job. That is something which we all know. And in terms of interviews, I wasn't overly aspiring to be in FANG companies right from the start. I aspired towards a product-based company, and luckily there weren't any data structures around. Like there were, but not much into them. I usually start off with data structures. It's not like I don't want to cover them. I usually start off with data structures, but I start off with stacks, then move towards queue, then linked list, and by that time I have given. Like I haven't explored trees much, graphs much, dynamic programming much because I tend to give up because practically I don't require them in my day-to-day job, and just preparing them for interviews doesn't make much sense to me. So whenever I feel like I pick up data structure at times, but I don't go extensively into them. And luckily for even senior level interviews, I haven't faced data structure rounds, at least in front end field. So most of the time I get go with just basic knowledge of React and JavaScript and some advanced level concept in front end. So that is the second shortcoming which I have, which is the lack of knowledge of data structures. So the third shortcoming that I have faced is not being able to overcome technical debt on time. So it happens that when you start working on a project, it might be a legacy project, it might be a up-to-date project, and the team size varies a lot. So it happens that team size might be small sometimes, and you have to focus on feature development. Like I have personally worked with a lot of startups, and it happens that you might not be focusing on upgrading your project to latest libraries or upgrading libraries on time, and you have to focus on feature development sometimes so that the clients get what they want and the revenue keeps incoming. And in that cycle, sometimes it happens that we tend to overlook upgrading critical libraries or security fixes. Like security fixes are one thing that we generally do, but like when libraries upgrade, we generally tend to be lazy and don't upgrade them until they have high severity or high priority. And I am one of those few who was pretty lazy when overcoming technical debt. So that was one of my shortcomings. Like I didn't upgrade projects on time, and sometimes it happened that I then had to work on legacy code, and it became a negative feedback loop. That is, I wasn't upgrading libraries. That is why I was writing legacy code, and since I was writing legacy code, I wasn't upgrading libraries. And due to that cycle, I wasn't working on latest frameworks and right amount of codes and latest features, and that limited me sometimes. So it happens that then I used to take permission, and then instead of a technical debt which might have been completed in, let's just say, overcoming the technical debt might have happened in 2 weeks, because of delaying the technical debts a lot of time, it used to take a complete month overall the project library, critical project libraries, and entire month used to go into uh, upgrading the project libraries to latest step. So that is one thing that is I had. So I didn't overcome technical debt right on time, and sometimes I used to focus on features and not on technical debt. The fourth shortcoming which I had during the initial years of my work as a software engineer was chasing latest technology. The reason was that whenever I used to work on, let's just say I was working on a new project, and I wanted to work on latest technologies even without thinking that whether it will be suitable for that project, whether the requirements were right, whether the team that would eventually take over the project will be comfortable in writing the code, or the technology would be the right choice for this. And during the initial years I was like chasing the shiny new objects and chasing shiny new technologies and researching them. It was good on the learning part, but in the implementation part on production level projects you have to take in a lot of factors into consideration, and I didn't have that kind of perspective in my initial years, and I didn't like made the right choices. Sometimes I didn't made the right recommendations. But over time, when I grew on my experience, I realized, okay, it is not just that the technology should be new, but they should be also stable and free of bugs, and they should solve the right problem at right times. What I mean by that is that a particular technology might be the one thing which might be useful for the feature you are working on, but it might happen that it might have its own inherent bugs, or it might not be the way to handle the code, or it might not be speedy enough or performance efficient enough to solve that problem at scale. And this happens that whenever you are writing code or using technologies for people or clients at a smaller level, you are easy it's generally easy to take up any technology and work on it. But as you scale, as your user base grows, and as your company becomes more mature, at that time growing at scale becomes a lot harder on newer technologies, because the features that you need might not be available into that particular technology. And that time migration into some other technology takes a lot of time, and it might introduce bugs, and you might lose a critical user base because of introduction of new bugs. So that was one shortcoming which I had. But luckily enough, I had a team, I had senior level people who knew that okay, this is not the right choice, it might be the right choice, and they explained to me properly. And that is the reason why I learned a lot and realized okay, this is what works, and this is going to work for a particular project at a particular time. So that was the first shortcoming which I had. So these were the four shortcomings which I wanted to cover in today's video. And the reason for making this video is because as you learn and grow into software engineering field, people tend to talk about the positive things, but you should also talk about the negative things or negative aspects which you face personally, because that will also help other people grow. So that was the core purpose of covering the shortcomings which I had as a software engineer. And if you found this video useful, then share it with your friends, share your own shortcomings in the comments, and subscribe to my channel because it helps me create more such content and deliver it to you. So yeah, that's it from my end for today. Thank you, have a nice day. Goodbye.